hello there. I didn't see you come in. Dom told me to do this.
This is my house, John.
Unrealistic.
Alright.
Wait, what are you reading from? Says a voice from the wings.
Alright, well...
Okay. He usually says it after he reads it.
Okay, sorry. I haven't been a part of this podcast. I don't know where I am. I just walked in from the street. That
disembodied voice is one Audrey Dimola, and I'm reading from her book, Wildlight, Poetry and Prose from Inside the Fire. You can purchase this on Amazon.com.
No, purchase it from the author.
Or the author herself.
Brokeassauthors.com.
I don't believe that's a real
thing. The tracking number leads you directly to Audrey's house.
And you're like...
You just come to the door.
Yeah!
You're literally like, buy it from the author. Find me.
Tracking device.
Right. So this is an excerpt from the book. I will water the spring, and I will pretend that you are dead. The sacred vine of your tears has dried up. I cannot pray another word for them to anoint me, begging. I have no taste for this. I forget how to pray. This is the dark night, she tells me. Maybe ancestral damage. More than a decade of scapegoating my pain and others cannot be lifted simply overnight. We must work. We must fight. I will water the spring and pretend that you are dead. Pretend I never saved your salt and tears in the glass vial inside my heart chamber. I let you frightened bird, strange boy, disillusionment, at one moment, affirmation in the flesh, now words and walls that will always radiate coldly to me, but all I will do is smile and say, yes, I knew him. Out of sync with time, and when I returned, he was never there. Just my imagination, like you always said, self-fulfilling prophecy. I will write it 1,000,000 times. I cannot allow these feelings to hurt anymore. I sing the bone songs. I sing the filling up with water. I sing the breaking apart with fullness, the breaking apart. The way I repeated your name when you were lost inside the system, I will enunciate my own. The way I saw you as the archangel, sword lifted to night sky, I will imagine my own wings, my own stars. The way I wait for some sign of you, dig fingers in, fixate, dirty myself with the dirtiest word, need. I will remember to need myself like I need that sky in my mouth. My words, my work, this pen, this page, this hollowed out heart sure makes a good megaphone. Damn, I just didn't realize you had taken such a big part. You won't follow me, I know. Or is it me to you, Neverland, my Peter, never after? You were never meant to be real. Your magic pulled me in both directions. Rebel against forever, or grow up. I will try not to confuse the man for the legend when I see your words on walls. I was in love with the legend, but he wasn't man enough to love me. Yet, too much of a man, too human, too godly. I watched you talk your creator down from his perch. I watched you cry. I watched you say goodbye to me before my very eyes. Truly realize it. Why didn't I know? The future comes fast when you're living for it. I underlined that part too. Never is Neverland. The way I waited hours, no food until you were free. You waited for me. You said you couldn't follow. Libre mama, the jumble of words I couldn't understand. You're free. Yes, I know. We are worse off than Icarus, not melted by the sun. We were the sun. And every transition to transformation I will feel you in the chill of the air, the bones of the trees. We were there. I will try not to remember how to kiss you. I will try not to remember how I always said I could see you better with my eyes closed. You were still too much a part of the dark. You were all I wanted at that moment. Pressing your golden fingers through. You were reality's edge. The other wounds are healed. It's only him who's still bleeding. Can you hear that? You left. We were once cuffed side by side, mouth to mouth, like we owned it all. I'll try to forget how much I realized I loved you. How scary it was to do it anyway. To crack open the potentiality for this. The morning after you got locked up, I rescued a bird stunning itself senseless, flying over and over into glass windows. I thought it was dead, but it wasn't. I felt like you were that bird, we were that bird, and we were going to be okay. The other day you rescued a bird from a cat's mouth and kept it in your room. The walls covered in our writing, your artwork. Days later you got lost in your legend and forgot about it, left a door open and another cat killed it. The last time I left I saw its severed wing at the foot of your stairs. Tell me, what is the meaning of inevitable? Tell me, what now?
So pause.
Okay. So I want to ask Audrey's questions.
Three's Company too. Okay, first of all, like that was so nice to hear in someone else's voice.
Yeah.
And you have such a great reading voice, and I realize it even more when you're reading something else other than your own work. I was like, wow, that sounds so intense. Like,
it was your
so
words.
thank you.
Yeah. But I felt like, so this is page 102 of like, what is it, 250?
Hold up, you gotta
58.
do like the real intro now.
But I did, didn't I?
No, like the real intro of who this person is.
Oh, okay.
This stranger here.
So this is Audrey Dimola, sister and friend of Dominic Dimola.
Friend. Not my friend.
Sister and frenemy of one Dominic Dimola.
One.
Yeah.
I actually knew Audrey first, so she's welcome to take me away from you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I thought you meant you knew me before my brother, and I was like, huh, how'd that work out?
No.
Like 1988?
I met Audrey before I met Audrey's brother.
He was the one that delivered me, didn't you know?
You did a bad job. He almost killed himself in the womb.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Emergency C-section.
I don't want to be here. Sorry,
Look
guys.
it up on the internet.
But yeah, Audrey and I used to work together, and shortly after I met her, we were talking about Metal Gear Solid and like stupid stuff, and like she's like, "Oh my God, you gotta meet my brother. You'll love him," and I did.
And I did.
I did meet him, and I thought he was alright.
Every
And
poetry
we were
thing.
best friends
Yeah.
forever.
I just made John laugh inappropriate every poetry thing we
Yeah.
went to together. Somebody's
Yes.
talking about like, oh, death and people dying, and me and John are just like, background.
No, see, Dom's the kind of person that, you know, he's the guy that there's serious stuff going on, and he'll whisper something hilarious in your ear, and he won't laugh, but then he'll make you laugh, and then you look like the asshole.
It's just deflecting the asshole.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've known Audrey for a long time. What did we figure out? Like 5 years?
Yeah. Like 2011-ish?
Maybe
Or
like, no,
2012.
it might be like 6 or 7 years now, yeah.
Wow.
2011. End of 2011 or
And
2012,
Audrey is a poet and a writer, and she's involved with a lot of artistic endeavors in Queens specifically. And this is her third book, and I'm saying a lot.
It's okay.
Umulot.
And so when I took my vacation/trip to Italy, I was in Italy for a week, which is fulfilling a lifelong dream for me. The last day I was there, I just sat in a cafe for 4 hours and read like 100 pages of her book.
Yay.
And so that's what I'm up to. But actually, I just read this part today, and so far, like this, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or I don't know, but like this whole part about the bird and the cat, it feels like that sums up everything I've read so far somehow. Of like,
That's interesting.
I felt like that it's a perfect metaphor for. Because I saw your arm do that just now.
Everyone put their limb.
Ow! Knocking off my glasses.
Okay, so for people listening, Dominic just told me to lower the book with his arm.
And I knocked
because-
Dom's glasses off his face.
In recompense.
But yeah, I mean, do you feel, because this was a question.
Yeah, shut up. Like, God.
Sorry, we
Bluetooth
had, like,
speaker.
Bluetooth. Sorry.
Unruly technology.
Because I was actually thinking I wanted to ask you this question, and it's a highly personal question, and if you don't want it to be
That's
out there,
okay. It's all out there,
we
man.
can cut it out later or something, but I feel like this is a metaphor possibly for it, of what is it about the relationships that you've had so far that it just seems like that the way you describe these men in your book,
Mm-hmm.
you legitimately love them, but at the same time you feel kind of trapped by them, like that they're taking away your freedom. And I thought it was such a good metaphor too, because like there's a lot of stuff about Peter Pan obviously and flying, and this is the man that he saved the bird from being killed, but then kind of was not thinking about it or not taking care of it.
Totally.
And then let it out to try to fly away and then be killed by another cat, you know?
The cat actually came into his room because the bird was kind of recovering and he was keeping it in his room. And I was so touched by that. I was so touched by the fact that he rescued this bird and he had this basement apartment and there were just tons of cats in his yard and that his family had, and they were like feral cats, and so the cat like came in. He wasn't even trying to like let it out to be freed. It was just that he was supposed to keep the door closed and keep the bird safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And got lost in the legend.
So
cat came in.
The good intention of trying to rescue the bird led to, it's the good intention by someone that wasn't responsible enough to actually succeed in doing so.
Where are you
I mean,
going?
would you agree that that's sort of like a theme?
And I think also just the inevitability is a big thing. I am very stubborn, which is why the book is so long. And I feel like a lot of times red flags go up in front of me in relationships and I kind of like swerve around them and want to continue giving something, not even the benefit of the doubt. It's just like, it honestly is almost an addiction at this point of trying and trying and trying and trying and trying again. And so, that's totally true what happened. And those things happened in the space of a small span of time. And sometimes I feel like we're just living the metaphor. I always tell people, like, I recognize the poem while I'm living it.
Well, what's so incredible about this book, like, first of all, I haven't talked to her about this at all yet. So this is like the
John
first time
just
we're
got
talking
back
about
from
it.
Italy, like...
Well, like
he's like,
week
bibbidi
ago.
bobbidi, and here I am. So many
They can do that because they're
We're Italian.
I still got the spaghetti in my mouth.
Hey, you're guinea wop. Wow, that's racist.
Take it easy.
Oh my god. Sorry, just train of thought.
See, now you got two of
Now
us.
I got two of the ball to deal with.
Mario Luigi. I'm Mario.
No, what I was gonna say is that I love this book so far. Like, it's
Thank you.
incredible. And what's so captivating about it to me, and something that I relate to on a deep level, is that this book, like, is literally, you as a character in it are in two worlds at the same time. Right? So it's like the metaphysical and the physical world are happening at the same time. So at the same time that, for example, like, you would be in this mystical forest with like two wolves that are your guides, you're also in the back of a cab going somewhere. And you transition so seamlessly between the two. And
you.
I think that that's like what you were kind of saying too, that like you kind of just are living the metaphor, you know, that, because I feel that way too. I feel like I live, like my brain is kind of in and out of like reality, like almost like we're like cats, you know, like you know, like you know that
Dom feels
the
this
idea
too.
is that cats could see into like this other world, but they're also here as well.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel a lot of the time, that I could go back and forth between like some might say it's a fantasy, some might say it's another reality.
Well, you always said you were like grappling with that. Like you just feel like the floor is gonna like disappear in front of you.
Right. And like especially when I dream, that my dreams sometimes are so vivid that I can't it would be impossible to tell the difference between the two until I wake up. You know.
I think that's real life though, right? Like, and I'm
Perception.
Kind of fishing mail.
It's all in your brains.
I've kind of I've come
Contact problems.
Aw.
Sorry.
Vision problems.
It's a metaphor.
That's a whole nother
Pew,
thing.
pew, pew, pew.
Next
But
level.
what were you gonna say?
I came up with this concept of like being a bridge walker.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel.
Well, you also have a special relationship with a specific
with the
bridge.
totally. But I think like that's super real, and the older I get and the more tapped in I get to what I think is the real world with a capital R, like I think that it's easy and seamless to go between these two worlds. I don't think you need all these like accoutrements and all these things and all these, you know, you don't need to even like meditate super deeply or I don't know, go on a journey. It's like these worlds are accessible. These are different vibrations and you can just slip in and out of them. And I think like certain people it's easier for them, but I think everyone has the capacity. But I think it's confusing when it happens. Like what's happening to you? It's like which is the real world, which is the real vibration. And same thing with me. Like what I've kind of realized is like, you know, that story, what you mentioned, the two wolves, and Dom doesn't know about this actually. Do you know the legend of like the good wolf and the bad wolf feed the good wolf?
Yeah, something
right?
like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like...
That's like your intentions or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like which path to go down.
Exactly.
Like this one is going to come at you more if you feed this one.
Well,
Yeah.
what was so incredible too, and I sent you a picture when I was reading it at the cafe, like next to the Coliseum. This family came up like a couple of tables in front of me with two big dogs, and it was like a white
one
dog
was white and
a
one was
black
black.
dog.
But that's
And
what
they're
I'm...
both Italian.
Hey! No, but that's what
That
I'm...
is so
That's
weird.
what I'm saying. It's like this world of metaphor and guides and messengers and this like quote unquote fantasy world, it's bleeding into the quote unquote real world because they're interchangeable. You know what I mean? And that's so there's this whole thread in this book, Dom, of this story that came to me based on those wolves. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying not to divide them in that way. And say that this wolf is good and this wolf is bad, but there is like this dichotomy between them that one is white, one is black, one is light, one is dark.
What was also such a strange experience for me is that I was in Italy and I saw the statue of Dante Alighieri, and it reminded me so much of like Dante's Inferno kind of thing.
Yeah, because you're going down.
And you like the way you describe the places that you go in this metaphysical realm, it feels real. It feels like...
Because that's the thing it is. Like, now we're gonna start getting into like some
You
fucked up
see?
places.
Like,
Right?
this
Here
is
we go.
what I love about this
No,
podcast.
you don't? Okay.
But yeah, I want to ask you
Segues.
that too. Like, was this something... This world, the metaphysical part...
Yeah.
Is this something that you were experiencing like as you were writing it? Or is it something that you feel like you actually experienced? Or how did that come to you?
Yeah.
Because I've read your other books, and that was never a part of it.
Totally. I'm so glad that we're talking about this. I've never talked about this before. And I'm so... Yeah, and like... Because I put
And I'm
this...
so excited to find out how this ends.
I know, seriously.
But anyway, yeah.
Weren't you just saying something about the book recently to me? Like
About
when I brought
this?
up Marcus, and you were like, I didn't get to that part in the book yet. So I don't know what.
That's the fucked up part. Like literally, you know what's so funny? One of my exes was like, I need to get the book. I need to see myself in print. You know, no one's ever immortalized me in a book before. And he's like, my life through the lens of, and it was like my autobiography through the lens of Audrey Dimola's
He
poetry.
just like rips out all the parts about him, changes the title.
Like taste it, but
yeah, like.
So
Wait,
yeah,
the metaphysical.
getting back to the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I'm really glad you picked up on this because I included it in Wildlight like without much fanfare, right? Like I pretty much I put this story on my website and I didn't really like, you know, I didn't really draw a lot of attention to it. So how this started happening was really it was being in a place where I couldn't process my pain in the way I normally did. I was like, I don't want to fucking write about this in the usual way I write about it, which is like, here I am, I'm writing poetry about exactly what's happening. It was like so fucking great and the pain so profound that I couldn't process in that way. And so literally like how I'm looking at it now is like, this is a shamanic transmission of story. But in such a way that I feel like, it's actually funny, one of my friends is a shamaness and she was like, your writing is like doing ayahuasca. Like when you do ayahuasca and you take the medicine and you go on a journey, like that's what your writing is like. And I've never taken ayahuasca, right? Like, so that's kind of what I felt was happening. So literally this was just coming through me and I'm experiencing it and I'm just literally writing it. And it was weird because I didn't fucking plan this. I wasn't like, I'm gonna write a story about the Goodwill, you know? And like it would come to me at these weird moments. I remember even one time I was at my ex's house and I was in such a fucked up place. I was like in fetal position, like curled up in his bed, like crying, like so lost. And like I have my notebook there with me and I'm like literally like, you know, curled up and I just start writing it and it just starts coming. And so it was strange because it was pieces of my life that were actually happening getting transformed in this way. So like the warrior with like, I don't know if you got up to that part, the warrior, you know, with, you know, like part of he's part winged, like that's my ex-fiance, you know, like the man at the beginning of the book is the person that I wrote Traversals about, you know. There's another part where I'm in the woods and there's all these young ones and they find a dead bird. Yeah. That was me going upstate, spending time with the little girl who I babysit and her family. And I was in like a super dark place and I was on the bus going home with her writing this. So that's the super strange thing about this. And it's even stranger now where like, you know, this whole thing has come together in Wildlight. The full thing is there and looking back on it and reading it and being like, holy shit. Like there's so much more here than I even realized. And I do feel like that's my way to journey. And that's what I mean about being a bridge walker and having it be seamless. Like you don't need all these, you know, it's just like you're there and you're in it and you're writing it and you're experiencing it and like a part of you is there and you're here and you're there at the same time.
Because where I've been reading this, like, since I've been reading this, it kind of has been amazing to me too how you have kind of taken excerpts from this book to like read at events and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like what Dom said before off camera, like what poem you wanted to read.
Yeah.
It's not really like that. It's more of like, almost like a novel in a way.
Ooh,
like,
cool.
Like it's, no, but I mean, I feel like
now you're a novelist.
This is like a story. This is not just like, oh, it's a book with multiple poems.
Totally.
Like, I don't know where one would begin and the other one, you know, and end, you know, like they all connect so far so well. And
I'm so glad to hear that.
I find myself getting excited when it goes back to like the wolves and what's going on there, because it's so, again, it feels like what I've described to both of you of like the kind of dreams that I've had where it's so vivid, but it goes by like dream logic, but there is a logic to it.
Yeah.
There is like a continuity, you know, and that's what like
we were talking about that in the last podcast.
That's what fucks with you,
right?
man, because it's like, all right, I'm told that this stuff isn't real, but there was like, but like.
Montezuma.
There was a continuity to the dream, like, and there were characters in it, and we've discussed this on the podcast before. Like, you know, where does that come from?
Dream is but a second life. Gerard de Nerval said that.
Like a friend of mine, one of my closest friends, Cal, I remember once said to me, like, we were talking about like fictional characters. I don't remember exactly what he said. This was many years ago. But he said, like, you know, like I commented to him that like he talks about fictional characters like they're real.
Yeah.
And he says, well, why do you think that they're not real?
Yeah.
You know, like, and like that. I never forgot that of just like when you're a writer. And a lot of writers have talked about this, that I remember, what's her name? The one that wrote Harry Potter.
Oh, J.K. Rowling?
Yeah, talking about killing one of the characters and, like, how she, like, cried and mourned at the death, you know?
Totally.
And, like, her husband was like, well, why don't you just change it? It doesn't work that way.
Seriously?
Yeah, but do you feel like that... that world exists, like,
oh yeah,
and that you're both a character in that world and in this world, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the strange thing.
Like real, like it's a real place.
Yes, yes, and I think that becoming real in that place has helped me become real in this place. In a way, like Dom and I grew up, we always were imagining everything. We were constantly like, that's what we did, and we had imaginary friends, and we knew what they looked like, and we would interact with them. You know, be like petting a cat that isn't there, and I like can see it in my mind. You know, and that's how I got through school. You know, and through anxiety and long car trips and being by myself, was living in my mind. And constantly imagining all of these characters and people and these scenarios and this life, all these other lives that I was living simultaneously. So it's like, this is something that's familiar to me. But then, of course, right, you grow up and out of it, you know? And then it's like, no, now you're crazy. You can't be talking to things that aren't there and seeing things that aren't there. But like this, you know, like what the fuck is the difference between writing a story like that and creating these characters versus like God, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I
like
was gonna say that.
All of these things that we can't see, but they're there. So like, why aren't these things real? Because I feel them, that they are, and like I feel them with me now. I imagine them there, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm just making this up. I'm like, and weirdly, what you're gonna see. I'm sorry to interrupt, Dom. I'm gonna like finish my statement. When you get to the end of the Two Wolves story, I'm actualizing myself. Like I've split off from myself and I see myself in a way that I never have. And actually like this even ties into like the trip, you taking your trip to Italy. I took a trip that was where I finished Wildlight to Santa Fe, to New Mexico. And coming back, you know, I started feeling all the lonelies again, right? After having this like intensely charged experience and like feeling spirit and nature and everything together. And I remember like getting off the bus and I was at a rest stop and I'm like looking out into the mountains and I'm like back in the east, you know, and I like visualized / it just happened. That's the thing, right? It's like, what the fuck is this line between like, I'm not imagining this like it's happening, like, but it's not there that I can see, but I'm, you know what I mean? And I basically was standing there and like felt myself, my other self that now is like actualized, walk up to me and like squeeze my shoulder and like put her arm around me, you know, and be like, we got this.
Wow, you just gave me chills.
You know? So it's like, but it's like, I'm not there like, oh, look, you know, so it's like, yeah, what is this line? So anyway, Dom, like,
no, let John go off of that.
Oh.
Whatever I was saying is out of date at this point.
Well, no, really. So
because that's what I wanted to get you to like try to talk about. Like, did you experience that with like this trip to Italy? Because you've been wanting to do that since like high school.
Yeah.
Like, are you still connected to like being there? Because like there's always that thing like you've done it, but now that it's in the past,
it's weird. And well, first of all, I knew beforehand that something like this would happen where it was so long the goal that I knew that once it was achieved, like I've told you, like my grandfather always said, like the problem with achieving a goal is now you have to make new goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the thing. Now I need new goals to achieve.
I feel like we talked about that too.
We did.
Yeah,
in
with
one
Joel.
of the
I
previous
think with
ones.
Joel.
Oh right.
You mean the ghostly voice?
Yeah, and I think I was just kind of being like, well, that's the fun of it. You get to do something new.
Right. So that's part of
You're
it.
so positive, Dom.
But
trying to be.
also I've been dreaming
To keep the tears at bay.
I've been dreaming that I'm still there,
Oh, wow.
which is interesting.
Well, maybe you are metaphysically.
Yeah.
You left part of yourself in Italy.
Yeah.
But
Isn't that a good way to think about it, John?
something I want to go back to again, like it's funny because my vampire friends are like this. That I have friends that actually subscribe to like a philosophy of vampirism, and there's a lot of talk about kind of seeing behind the veil.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Yep.
And so I've had stuff like this happen for me before, but it's rare. But sometimes I'll get like a form of sleep paralysis. And I think I got it because like my body was confused through like jet lagged and like not knowing what time it was.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that's why it happened a couple of days ago.
Oh, you mean since you come back? Since
yeah.
you've come
So
back.
like.
Oh whoa.
A couple of nights ago, like 2 nights ago, I was in bed and I was sleeping. And,
As you do.
all of a sudden, like, I was in that half awake, half asleep mode, but I couldn't move.
I love that moment.
Well,
Not with sleep paralysis.
Yeah. So that's where like you start seeing shit, and like what always happens is like my heart is racing, like I can hear it and feel it.
Wow.
And like I can't move, and I start seeing and hearing weird shit.
Huh.
And like
what?
so like a couple of nights ago, like I saw like what looked like to me like an image on my wall. It was like a white image, almost like a television, like a projector or something.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And it was like television static, and there were like ghostly faces coming into it. And hearing like these like mumbling sounds.
Oh man.
And so like typically
that's like some Silent Hill.
Yeah. So like what typically happens
I'm leaving this podcast right now.
what typically needs to happen for me to like snap out of it is like I need something like horrible to happen. Like
In
a
the
horrible
dream.
vision or sound or something that like startles me awake.
Yeah.
And so I was like in my head thinking like, just fucking happen, just fucking do it. I'm ready for it. Just I want to wake up. I want to just wake up. And like the last time this happened, I actually got my friend Axel's voice in my head.
Oh, cool.
Where he said something like, this was like another vision, like where I saw like a humanoid shadow figure just standing in my room.
He said, "Oh boy."
And just like standing there.
Yeah.
And I had Axel's voice come into my head saying, "Don't worry, dude, it's not real. It's not real." And like I was able to wake up. So this time I had that voice again, but it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so I got my friend, I told her this too yesterday. I got my friend Noelle's voice in my head where she said,
Noelle from Downtown?
No.
Okay.
Where she said, just submit to it. Just let it happen. Yeah. And like I was able to like submit and relax.
That's totally the complete
Stranger
opposite
Things.
of what he's saying though. That's so weird.
So what's so strange is that like the submit.
That gave me chills.
So what happened was after that happens, this happened to me before. It's like all of a sudden, like the projector with staticky, ghostly images and everything. I literally see it morph into reality of like.
Wow.
Oh, there's the mirror that's on across from my bed, and it was just the reflection of the lights coming in through the window, and like I literally see reality form again around me, and then I'm able to move.
Yeah.
And so like when this happens, like it feels like I'm just seeing behind the veil.
Yeah.
But
Jinx, you want me to talk about?
but that's the thing.
Soda.
Like, is this real or
But
is
that's
it not?
so weird that Axel came to you and was like, dude, this is not real. Wake up. And then that didn't work this time.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And this person had to be like, John, submit to it. Like, this is what it is.
So
like,
maybe,
accept it.
Yeah, so maybe
That's
you're
the
getting
complete
deeper into
opposite.
it.
That Axel did not work. That is I'm getting like so many chills.
Like
That's what I'm trying to tell you like every single time. I'm like, John, like just it's real. Just stop like lying to yourself. Just the fact that you're sitting here and being like, oh yeah, like dreams are a separate thing. I remember talking to you being like, yeah, dreams are just like whatever's in your brain. Like remember you were like talking about deep
garbled in a blender.
Yeah.
my point is that my point with that is that you don't know. Like,
yeah, but
it's impossible to know,
Exactly.
like because we can only see through our own perceptions.
exactly. But
But-
what is perception? Like perception is all of reality. What reality
Or is it just
is,
our heads?
What reality is, like actual reality, is just our perception of what reality is. So who's to say what that is?
Like a couple of months ago, I was literally talking on the phone with my dad about this, and I'm
Yeah.
like, because I'm saying, well, maybe it is real. How can I know? And he literally said to me, or it's a chemical imbalance in your brain.
God damn it! And that's why we're doing How We Create and How We Cope
You
tomorrow.
want to talk about that a little
No.
bit?
This is not gonna be out like
Yeah.
after that anyway, so.
Yeah. No, we're doing a show about the intersections of art and mental illness tomorrow at the Gordy Performing Arts Center. But no, I think what you're saying is super. But this is exactly what I'm saying about the bridge walker and about things being fluid. I think that things are
that's
way
what I'm
more
saying.
fluid.
I
than
literally
we...
see,
Yeah.
like when that's happened, I literally see it morph again into reality, which is so weird. It's like Silent Hill. It's like...
You know what I wanted to say?
What?
Like, how maybe you got stuck, like,
In
frozen.
between.
Yeah.
Like when you
because
get stuck in a
you
video
were-
game
what was
between
your-
a wall.
Yeah, what was your dream was that you were in Italy, right?
Maybe, I don't know I don't know what I was
So,
doing
like,
before that.
wherever you were, like, your body probably wanted to come back, and you were, like, somewhere else, and then when you tried to come back, you got, like, stuck, like, not knowing which side of the wall you were on.
I've told you I've, like, had
The
dreams
mirror.
that...
Alice in
the
Wonderland.
mirror.
when I was a kid, I had, like, an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
I told you about
But
that.
I think you do that all the time.
And I've had it, it hasn't happened to me in a long time, but I've had dreams that I was just standing in my bedroom with my back towards the bed, my back to the bed, and that this fear that if I turned around and saw myself, I wouldn't be able to go back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm almost, like, standing right outside my body.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, because, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I get back in? I don't know what to do, but then I end up getting back in. One weird dream that I had, sorry, completely sidetracked.
No, this is how it goes.
One dream I had, I think I was in high school. This was so bizarre because I've been thinking about this lately for some reason because it was so real. I dreamt that I was in my bedroom in Massapequa, Long Island, because that's where
Long
I lived.
Island.
And I just sat up, and my bedroom looked like my bedroom. It was like normal.
Yeah.
But I looked out my window, and it was the future.
Whoa.
And like in the distance, I could see on the horizon like almost like a Space Needle looking building, like in
Seattle.
Seattle, yeah. But it was Long Island, so that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And outside, on my corner where I live, there's like a stop sign, but there wasn't a stop sign there. There was like some weird traffic light looking thing, but there were like 3 of them, and there was weird futuristic cars, and it looked like the 3 things helped slow down the car.
Whoa.
Or something.
That's cool.
And then it kept going, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, I must be dreaming, so I just lied back down, and then I woke up, but it was like, part of me wonders, like, did I somehow go to the future?
Yes!
Because it was just like technology that I kind of made sense about it afterwards.
Yeah, that's the thing.
but-
Like, if it makes sense, like, Sure.
This is what I want to say. I think what just came in my mind is like, what the fuck do you have to lose through saying this is real?
That's exactly what
No,
I
but
always
that's
say
the
to
terrifying
him.
part. Because it's like...
And that's the message that you
That's
got.
what I always say to you.
That's the terrifying part,
Like, why
because it's
not?
like, where do you draw the line?
You don't.
You don't have to.
But you
this
have
is how you
to.
end up in a mental hospital.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
We're gonna
That's
come
my
visit you,
fear.
and it's gonna be fine.
No, you want to know what my biggest fear
no, actually,
is?
we're not gonna come visit you because we're gonna be in there
John's
with
eyes are the whitest I've ever seen his
I
eyes
literally-
like, in my
I
life.
wrote
They're
this out
popping out
once.
of his head.
I wrote this out once. I don't remember where I even have it. I think I purposely forgot where I put it because I never put it anywhere. I wrote it out once of like that. My worst fear is that I am in a mental institution, and I've just been hallucinating for like 20 years. And I wrote it out of like, well, that would mean that like crazy stuff like 9/11 never happened, and it was just like an hallucination of mine, and like.
But that's another thing that like reality.
That none of this is real.
No,
that
reality
I'm just talking
is just
to a
a
wall
mass
right now.
hallucination.
But how do I know? But that's what I'm saying.
It's
like
a mass hallucination.
that's where I would that's where I went through this thing in college where, especially because I was taking all these philosophy classes,
Oh, damn.
and I started to
Yeah,
lose my
no.
mind a little bit because like
No.
they all make perfect sense, but they all contradict each other.
Yeah.
And like nothing, like it's just like, and I remember walking around and I called up Cal, and I'm like, I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if the floor is gonna fall
Kingdom
apart.
Hearts.
And he's like, John, you can't do this. Like, and remember, we had a lot of conversations. Like, you have to believe in something. You have to choose to believe in something.
Yeah.
And so I chose to believe in science because that's the most
I
practical.
only believe in
Science.
science.
It's just practical.
Yeah.
Okay,
but-
here.
I don't know.
You got some.
That's what's problematic, because how do you ever really know?
Yes, I do.
But you have to, like, choose something. Like, I have to believe that this table exists, or that glass.
Apple juice.
From previous video.
Throwbacks. But it's, I don't know, I like to see things as everything and nothing at the same time.
I have like two.
Don't you think that, John?
Everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
Wait,
Everything
I'm gonna put you
is
on the spot. Explain
everything
that.
is in existence and not in existence at the same time.
What does that mean?
Like the past and the future and the present all combined
Everything's
into some weird
everything's
thing.
converging at the same time.
Yeah, I felt that.
Like,
but it doesn't,
okay, John,
it's hard to understand.
John, so if I look at you and I see you, right? I can clearly see that you're here. But if I look over there and I don't see you anymore, how do I know that you're still there? And you don't disappear because I'm not looking at you.
Object permanence,
Exactly, but who says that that's a thing?
science.
Yeah.
Make a blind.
No, there's like two things. God pressed his pen tip in the sand and wrote man. He said, "This is all I have to give you. I cannot write the meaning. That is up to you."
You wrote that?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But that's what I feel. It's like everyone's fucking running around searching for meaning. It's like literally that's why I have goddamn live your legend tattooed on me.
I actually want to go into this too.
Yes.
Because something that I felt, and it's kind of like similar to what I remember stuff that like Nietzsche had said.
Yeah.
was just like.
Yeah, we're almost at like an hour, right?
No, it's like 40.
Oh, it's like 40, kid.
People misinterpret. I don't know if this is relative, but people misinterpret like what Nietzsche meant about like God is dead. What he meant was that there's no like. Up until that point, philosophers are trying to figure out objective truth. And he was saying that the only being that could possibly know objective reality and objective truth would be God. But even if there is a God, we'll never figure that out.
Yeah.
So he's saying it's pointless. It's pointless to even try.
Yeah.
You don't need to believe in God. You don't even need to be thinking about it.
No.
God is dead. You know, it's not necessary. It's pointless.
Yeah.
And so he was saying that, like, instead, you know, invest in art and find meaning there and expression and all these things. But the problem with that is that what I feel is, like, when I'm walking around everyday life, there is no meaning to life. There is no objective truth. There's no symbolism. there's nothing. It's just, this table's just a table. It doesn't mean anything.
But if you make it mean something, right?
But that's the thing,
Well,
like...
that's like what we were talking about earlier with the reptile thing. And like,
oh, yeah.
Like, you can just be like, oh yeah, I'm here to live and procreate and die. Mm-hmm. And that could be all the meaning that there is. Mm-hmm. Or you can assign something to it.
But there's no meaning unless there is a creator. And that's why I end up getting so sucked into art and video games and like
But can you
books.
be the creator? That's what I feel God is dead actually means. And I had this conversation with Nick Neon, who should fucking be here right now, asshole. No kidding.
He can be in the next.
I know he will. No, but we literally had this conversation when we were sitting fucking like across from each other in the diner, and we were like, both of us were like, I feel like the gods are dead. I feel like it's up to us now. That's what I feel. So it's not like this nihilistic thing like God is dead and like religion doesn't exist. It's like, no, like you are God in the flesh. Like it is up to you. It's not about having this like medium, this middleman, and like praying to the creator, the savior, like I don't know what I'm here to do. It's like whatever the fuck you want to ascribe. And that's why like Live Your Legend is so big to me. That's why these quote unquote characters, these messengers, these guides are becoming so much more real to me. And like why all of these things that happen to me, I'm ascribing this mythos to it. I'm ascribing this meaning to it. Because if that's because a lot of people are like, oh, is this coincidence? Oh, is this happening? Like, what is this? What is this? And it's like, no, if you fucking see it, it's there. And I'm like, I'm always at the goddamn edge of death anyway. No, yeah, if you see it, it's there. You know, like it's like, you know, I remember like the first anniversary of Nana dying, right? Mm-hmm. And like all these quote unquote coincidences were happening. Like I was working at the yoga room, someone puts down a keychain and it has her birthstone, you know? And then like it was a terrible, like ugly day, and then I walk outside and I go around the corner and there's a fucking huge ass rainbow in the sky, you know? And it's like, did Nana send that rainbow? Oh, is it just coincidence? It's like, no, if I feel it's from Nana, then it's from Nana, right? Like if
how do you define that?
What? Because I feel it. And literally that's the only thing that I need.
So that's how you define reality?
The thing between the way that me and you work and John is John needs something to hold on to. He needs like a thing behind it to know that it's actually there.
But what I'm saying...
So like if there's like a clear sign, like that's... Like if something happens that reminds you of your grandfather, or like you think a message is sent from your grandfather, and you feel like it is, like I feel like you're not going to be like, yeah, that's my grandfather, unless it's like you know for a fact that that's from your grandfather.
Well, that's the thing. It's just how do you differentiate between reality and imagination?
It's
they're the same. They're literally the same.
Okay, so this is another. That's the thing that I was gonna say before about like this, where you're talking about like creating these characters, creating these things, and creating a world in a book or whatever. Like it's not even like you have this like omnipotence over it. You know, like you're not a god of this. Like it's like you're just funneling it, and it's itself. Like it's like whenever I write something, it's not like I'm sitting there like, what's gonna like happen? It's just kind of like, all right, it's like writing itself. Yes. Like these characters, they're what they are, and they're gonna do what they're gonna do. Like I could have control over it, and be like, hey, Rick is gonna all of a sudden like do this, but I'm like, Rick doesn't do that. Like that's not what Rick does. It's like, you know,
it's almost like like
it's
like
just
you
kind of like what it is.
So that's kind of what I'm saying. But the way that I got there is just literally like from an I don't give a fuck standpoint. It's like I can't keep questioning this because it's just an endless rabbit hole that leads into nowhere. It's like if something happens to me and I ascribe this meaning to it, then I'm just leaving it the goddamn alone. If I, like, because I could be like, I'm insane, I'm making this up, I'm imagining, it's imaginary friends. It's like, fuck it. If this is a thing that allows me to cope, then this is real, and that's it. That's where I draw the goddamn line. Because it's like, I'm so close to death and meaninglessness and pointlessness anyway, that if I can ascribe anything that, like, makes me feel better, and that's what we're fucking here to do. We're here to be gods in the flesh and create.
That. Like, we've talked about, like, truth and, like, what is real truth.
Yes.
Like, truth is whatever you say the truth is.
Yeah, which is intense.
Like, what are you talking about, like, objective truth? Like, you know? And, like, What's the other form of that? Truth. It's like two things of truth. Like you've talked about it before. Like truth that's like truth to everybody.
Oh, objective and subjective.
Yeah. So John is all about the truth that you can like grab onto. Everybody is like, yep, that's the truth. This is a table. No one can say this is not a table.
But you know? But I can be like, no, this is not. This is
that's
a portal
to
fucking Narnia when I lift it up.
And then you knock the water all over the floor.
Yes, and then
and it's like, what is water? Did it really fall?
Because honestly, right? Look, listen, really. Because...
John's about to. We got the straight jacket ready, John. We got you.
No, really, because it's like go with me on this. What the the way that everything got named in the world is because someone named it and other people got behind it. So if Dom and I are here saying this goddamn table is a portal to fucking Narnia, and
we're like sitting inside like
yes, and we go with it. That's
and
what
we're
it is.
In like this collective consciousness of like Narnia, an imaginary Narnia land.
No, legit.
And we're like, John, if you want some of this with us, you can come in with us, John. And you're like, nah, I'm good.
And isn't that honestly religion? Isn't that honestly government? Isn't that honestly like finances and fake money and all the bullshit that this world is built on?
My problem with it...
Fuck you, Donald Trump. No kidding.
Wow.
I just threw that in.
Make it political.
All of a sudden, like a bomb hits the house.
Jesus.
He doesn't exist.
My problem...
Great.
I'm kidding. He was a prophet. He was real. Not John Legend. On Easter.
What?
What?
I'm talking about Jesus Christ Superstar, y'all. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
See, my problem with it is I think it gives human beings too much power in that philosophy.
Oh. But why do you want to have power taken away? Why do you want someone else to have more power?
I just don't think that makes sense. I don't think that we're that important.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's easier to live in a box. That's what we've talked about before. It's easier to live the script that society gives you.
Yeah, but society also gives us the script that human beings are important. I don't think we are. The universe is too massive for us to really be important.
But does it? Like, it doesn't really... nobody really says that we're important. We're not that important.
I think everything pretty much is about, like, we're like the best.
We're like the best.
Well, that's, like, in comparison to,
most civilizations are kind of built on that.
In comparison to, like, animals, I guess. But it's like...
But we are animals.
We're the best. We're better than everybody else in comparison
According
to
to us, ask a cat that. They'll say something completely different.
So it's, like, subjective, like we were saying.
Sorry, RJ has to text.
I'm texting Nick. No, sorry.
Nick, you jerk. Why are you not here?
I know,
To
exactly.
fall down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. No,
but yeah, that's, like, my problem with it. That, like...
It's easier to live in a box.
But my perception can't be the definition of what's reality because I'm not that important. Like
I think you are.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what
I don't think any of us are. I don't think our planet's that important.
So reality is completely like in opposition of perception. Reality is perception. If you can't perceive something, it's not in your like reality. Like, there's a 4-dimensional plane, 2-dimensional plane. Like, if you can't perceive it, that's not your reality. Your reality is whatever you can perceive. And perceive means to understand.
Yeah. But
so that's the whole thing.
But I'm saying, like...
you're thinking, like, people, I can't create my own reality. You create your reality by perceiving something. If you perceive something, you can change your perception.
You perceive things incorrectly.
Exactly what we're saying.
But
and
who
says
what is correct?
Yeah. That is correct. That's the problem.
And then this is when you get mad and you start wearing a freaking Hatter's hat and drinking tea.
This is how you get mad.
It's tea time. Mustard.
Wait. Can I read this? Because literally this says some part of you must be mad. Okay?
Exactly. See?
Hold on, right? This was me.
You see, John, when you're talking about, how do you know? Like, things like that happen. Like, what are the odds of those two things? Like, I'm going to say something about mad, and she's already on the page about mad.
Because she's your sister.
That means nothing. Throw that out the window.
That means nothing. None of this means anything. This was me.
Why? Who says she's my sister?
Oh,
how do you know she's my sister? Like,
I just put my hand through his face, like, rip out his guts. Okay.
What are guts?
This is, oh my god, holy shit. This is me on the road to seeing one of my favorite bands, and I'm alone in a bus for 1,000,000 hours going to Chicago. Okay. And I was like in Indiana at this point. The thing I always forget is that I can only see as far as I can look. I am making a blood pact with the present, when the eternal now is erupting in feathers and crimson, screaming, more! At last, there's more! If I could just remember that sight is linear, but vision extends. Foreverward. Bewilder and Alice-like, you press your palm to the mirror of reality and push. Your life is inside the force. Motion, sharply drawn, inhale the sensation of giving way. And giving way is no hyperbolic falsehood, just as in every moment you are experiencing even the edges of something you could not expect. The very act of staying alive is an act of bravery, hurtling toward the future, becoming present, becoming past, yet still somehow the unending, pulsifying now. This landscape you have never cast your eyes upon, miles and miles of earth, flat, rolling, brambled, perfectly dusted with snow. You, delicate in savage birth, faint bloody outlines and broken twigs, are willing your hand, giving yourself the way to this. Some part of you must be mad in order to feel the impetus to push language, art, love, mortal bonds of bodies and supposed dimension. To believe in it, bleed freely and willingly. Your eyes are pointedly focused on some object you cannot yet see, yet in your very act of looking, forces it to begin to exist.
Yup. Basics.
You know what you just reminded me of? You know what you just
Like, that's what I was saying. Like, if I look over there and John's over here, like, once I look back at you, then you're real again.
No, tell me, John.
You remind me of something that, like, I was thinking a lot about that is fascinating to me. When I was in Italy, I don't remember which church we walked into when this happened, but I was with my friend Axel in Italy. Hi, Axel.
Hi, Axel.
What up?
And we walked into this church, and there were a bunch of, like, teenagers in there drawing stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I got, like, emotional. I even said to Axel, like, I love watching kids. Like, it was probably some art class or something. I love watching kids creating art. It's like they're learning how to express themselves, you know? It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've noticed this about every artist that I've ever met. And it's probably one of the reasons why, like, my first love was an artist. Like, they get this look in their eye of, like it's something magical, like, when they're drawing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. Because what does that look? And I think I know what it is. It's that they're looking at an object, and then they're seeing an object in their mind, and then they're drawing the object that's in their mind. So it's like, when you look into their eyes, they look as if that they're looking outward and inward at the same time. And that's what my first love used to do. Like, when she would look at me, I would feel like my soul escape, because she was looking at me, but she was also looking at something else in her mind at the same time. It's like seeing in two different worlds, you know? And like,
that brings...
I feel like that's what we're talking about, because I feel like I had this realization when I looked at myself in the mirror recently that I think, and especially watching back these videos, that I have that same look myself, that I'm always like the expression in my eyes and the way I move. Like, when you watch yourself back on videos, like, you become so aware of your body language that you're not normally. Of like, I said to you, it looks like I'm trying to escape my body.
Wow!
Like, trying to, like, just jump out of it or something.
Well, whenever I watch myself, I don't even know who that is. I'm like, what is that? Because I'm never aware of what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's really funny, or that's really dumb. Like, I did that? Like...
But it's interesting, like, again, going back to what we were saying before about, like, the metaphor and the reality. You know, there's something strangely, like, it sort of makes sense to me in a way that's beyond logic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. Maybe the moment that you're talking about inside and outside is when the metaphor and reality are converging, and maybe that's what you're seeing. And actually, it's funny because that brings me back around to the piece that you read at the beginning, because I know that look also because the person that I was writing about was an artist.
Yeah.
And usually I've been with, creative people of all different types. Usually they've been musicians or actors or something, but this was the first time that I was with a visual artist that I got to really see in progress. And we got to have all these really intense nights where we would just stay up all fucking night. Because he was like, you want to talk about like a reality cracker? Like, he was just like, what is reality? Constantly. He's like, why is this the day and why is this the night? Why should you be asleep at this time and why should you be awake at this time? What if we just reverse it? Let's stay up all night. Let's create. Let's sleep in the day. Like all this and he was constantly just like pushing the edges of me. Obviously it ended in fucking disaster as but what you read in that piece, it was like Thanksgiving night and he was like tripping on LSD, and I never saw anyone trip like in front of me, and I like saw him like talking to God, like experiencing this thing, right? And that look in his eyes of something that I couldn't see, but that he's experiencing. And so what you were saying about him saying, I watched you say goodbye to me in front of my eyes, like he knew that we were gonna break up, and he was like crying, looking at me like, I'm gonna miss you so much. And I'm like, what the fuck are you know what I mean? And so all of these dimension cracking moments, these moments of like one reality breaking through another, because I don't think this is ultimate reality. It's not. Everything is its own reality. Everything is like converging at these moments. And maybe like going back to what I said at the beginning also, it's like I know a poem while I'm writing it. And there's like that moment of being the witness and being outside and inside. Mm-hmm. And I think those moments that's what's real. I'm always like, I steal the line from Bohemian Rhapsody, like, this is the real life, and the fucking Kingdom Hearts line that I always say, like, I'm having these weird thoughts lately, like, is this for real or not? Like, that's totally everything.
As he like falls down into a black abyss,
like, who?
But I feel like we talked about that.
Yeah.
Like when you were talking about how you wrote that poem about your... Yeah, that, but also like how you wrote that poem about your grandfather. Like most of your poems just come straight out of you compared to that one where you like went back and like changed things and fixed things.
How is that relative?
Like how she's saying, it just comes out of you. Like you're part of it, but you're also not part of it. Like that was that was your exception to the rule of how you do things. Like all of the other ones are just like blah. Like this is what it is. I'm part of it while it's happening and like channeling it or whatever.
Yes.
And it's kind of is what it is,
But again, I don't know. I just want to talk about dreams right now because like
what is that?
I
you should watch the podcast.
Listen
and watch the podcast.
To sum up, like, we went into this in the previous podcast of just that I had this dream once that I was in a museum that was made of wood. And everything in it was made of wood. Like, the sculptures, everything was made of wood. And then I'm walking past this room, and there's this one statue that looks completely lifelike and like a real woman. And so I go in, and she starts talking to me, and she says, my name is Petanina. They used to write stories about me. And so, like, I woke up, and I, like...
You looked that up,
I looked up, like, the way I thought it would be spelt, and it was, like, weird, because, like, it actually translated in Italian to something kind of like step stool or something. And I'm like, oh, what a perfect metaphor of me putting women on a pedestal.
No, but the first thought that I got was step stool into another dimension.
Maybe, I don't know. And then like Dom.
Should I put that down?
Dom
you look like you have giant feet.
Oh Jesus! Yeah, and they're dirty.
Great.
But Dom was saying like, well, maybe it means both. And that was
that was the weird thing, and I was just like, it's both. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, because I said.
Wait, what's both?
That it could be just like
putting a woman on a pedestal, or
no, it could be like her name and also mean like
a word in Italian.
A word in Italian.
Yeah.
But like I've had dreams where. Have you guys ever experienced? Because I so rarely get to talk about this stuff. Like sometimes I'll wake myself up and like be saying words in like an unknown language, you know, like
Ooh.
Like you'll just wake up to yourself saying it?
or like I'll feel the words, but they're not real words. Like, but it
Who
feels
says
like it.
that they're not?
Well, that's the thing.
real
It, it expresses an emotion.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is coming from my unconscious.
Wow. That's
So it's
weird.
Which
beyond,
I guess
like,
people
words.
might say it's like speaking in tongues or
Yes,
something.
totally. Which is what our mother does. Audrey Light language.wordpress. languagechannel.wordpress.com. Sorry.
I've also like had it where this is always frustrating because I've never captured one yet. But where like I'll be reading in my dream a line and I'm like, this is such a beautiful line. I wish I wrote that line. And then I'll wake up and I'm like, shit, I did write that line,
Yeah.
but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
That happens so much.
Totally.
Like I had a genius idea as I was half asleep on the bus. I think you were I was talking to you about this. And then like I woke up and it was totally gone. And I was
Right.
like, what the hell?
I
Like,
remember years ago when I was still on Long Island, I had a dream that I was in bed and there was like this like blood red writing all over my walls.
Whoa.
And I could read what it was said, but when I woke up I couldn't remember.
The last line in my book is something that I saw Scott Weiland, rest his soul, who's the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots. Okay, so yeah, here's the thing also, right? Whatchamacallit? So yeah, dreaming of someone who's dead, right? Is that a visitation? Is that just a dream, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, it was totally Scott coming to me. And he wrote on a wall in the way that I do, and he wrote, "Choose immortality." And like it stuck with me so hard, and that was something that I'm so glad that I remembered him writing that and doing it. And it literally is the last thing that I put in Wildlight. And I have like a bunch of different directions I could fray into. But that's another thing, right? Of getting back to like what's real and what's not, what's real and what's not. And actually crazily, like through Instagram, I was able to talk with his wife.
No way.
And it was on the anniversary of his passing, and I just had this feeling, and I was like, I'm sure like 1 million people are like writing to her on this night, you know, and
Right.
for some reason I was like, I feel like I need to write to her and tell her like Scott, like talk about weird coincidences again, right? It's like I was in a super fucking dark time. I learned about Scott more through my ex, who was super in love with him, and he had his book sitting on the shelf that was signed by him, and it was like, and I was alone in the house and I'd wanted to read the book, and I picked it up and I'm, reading it, and I'm sick and I'm unemployed and I'm so fucked up in my head and everything, and I got this sudden urge to light candles. And at that point, like, I didn't really know how to use a lighter yet. I wasn't really like...
Yeah, I remember you wrote a little... I read that part.
Yeah, and suddenly I'm like lighting candles, right? And I put them, and I'm just like in the room alone with the candles. And literally like the next piece in the book is Scott saying, "Anywhere I go, I light the candles." And I'm like getting chills out. Like he's like, whether it's on a tour bus, in a cabin in the woods.
The
like,
word for that is synchronicity, right? Have you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure. Synchronicity, coincidence, whatever, right? But it's like, why... It's like these things converge for a reason. I don't think it's all just like random, you know? And so...
Well, with that same book, isn't that the random book that I found for
Yes! Yeah! That was the other thing. And so like I read that entire book. I started feeling super close to Scott, right? Like in that depression, like his, voice and the STP songs were the only thing that was getting through to me. And if he felt like a guardian angel, he like came to me in that dream, wrote "Choose Immortality." And I had wanted that book for myself. I was like, I want a copy of this because I feel so close to his journey, whatever. And then literally, like, I'm in my, our Dom and I's old bedroom, and Dom is like rifling through the closet, and all of a sudden he fucking pulls that book out of the closet. And he's like, "Is this yours?" And I'm like,
What?
And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like,
I didn't think anything of it. I was like, hey, here's a book.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And it turned out, like, literally, like, 5 or 6 years ago, I had bought that book for my ex without knowing that he already had it. And so I just, like, threw that book somewhere.
Oh.
And it came, like, I bought
That's
that book for
interesting.
myself, like, unknowingly.
Huh.
Because I wasn't, like, super connected to Scott at that moment. And then Dom, like, pulls it out and it, like, falls into my lap. And I'm like, hi, Scott. Like, so I got to have that moment of sharing that with Scott's wife. And we talked a little bit, you know. And she was saying, like, yeah, a lot of people think I'm nuts. Like, but at the same time, a lot of people come to me talking about ways that Scott is reaching through and reaching them. He's coming to them in dreams. He's sending them signs. He sends me signs. And it was amazing. And then I was like, I would love to send you my book. And she's like, here's my address. I would love to have your book. So a copy of Wildlight is actually going to fucking, you know, the West Coast right now. So
Wow.
that's the thing. I just think as I get older and as we are like moving as a species and a planet towards whatever this vibration is, I feel like people are waking up and the barriers between these worlds are just falling down. And maybe that's why you're having more experiences. That's why like you're more sensitive. That's why a lot of people are having fucking what appears to be mental breaches, because you can also even go into the realm of, right, mental illness and mental breaches. Like, what is that? Are people, and I had this thought a long time ago. Actually, I was probably like on the bus going to Dom Tom, where John and I used to work together. And I was looking at the bus and there's like a woman in the street like screaming at nothing, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's to say that she's nuts? She sees something that we don't see, you know? And the same thing with like, you know, at my job, like working with kids who are quote unquote disabled or, you know, special ed kids and whatever. It's like they're just on a fucking different vibration. They're perceiving shit that like we're not on the same vibration. They're not wrong. They're not messed up. They're not whatever, you know? And that's just what I think it is, like in general. And there's actually a woman who's going to be at the show tomorrow who is going to speak on that, because there's a whole thing about...
Sorry,
no, it's okay. Dom's made a noise earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if,
During the poem, behind the camera, it's like
during the poem.
during.
So sorry.
No. There's a whole thing about shamanism and mental illness, and how if you were in a tribal society and you were experiencing these things, you would have context. You would have medicine man. You would have elders. You would have people who are giving you, right, a legend, a myth. They're giving you an understanding of what's happening to you. Like you're on a vision quest, like voices are coming to you. You're having like, you know, other realities come into your own. But it's contextualized and you're not like, you know, what happens nowadays is you're fucking crazy. We're going to put you on meds. You're wrong. You know what I mean? And so there's literally like studies about this. And also, you know, Joseph Campbell, which is where like my Live Your Legend came from. He's a fucking legend. And he also wrote on this, like the whole metaphor, you know, of the hero's journey, which is what George Lucas was inspired by for Star Wars. And it fits into so many of these different myths. He's like, mental illness resembles the hero's journey, which is like the hero is like fracturing off and going off, you know, down into himself or on this adventure. But in the hero's journey that is resolved, he comes back, right? He comes back with the boons. He comes back with something that he's learned, with the treasure, with whatever. And in mental illness, a lot of times you just get fractured off into that journey and you don't come back.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, what the fuck is that? You know? It's like it's like depending on the context and the meaning that you give anything can be resolved. like
That's the thing, like what I've tried to explain to some people that ask about like how I feel about reality and all that, it's just like, because for people listening and watching that don't know, like I have what's called derealization and depersonalization disorder, where like I forget which is which, but one of them means that you don't know that other things are real, and the other one means that you don't know if you're real, and I have both. Like,
wow, I
don't know if I'm real.
That's what I've talked about, John. That's what I was like. That's exactly why I shut up and Audrey started talking. So I was
sorry.
My thought. So like, so yeah, it's just like that. For most people, I feel like most people just accept what reality is
Mm-hmm.
and the physical world, and that's what it is. And for me, and I guess a lot of other people that have quote-unquote mental illnesses, I have to choose to, like for most people it's not a choice, it's just they never even think about it, but it's such a strange thing to choose to believe that this is real.
Yeah.
And what is scary in a way is that I could so easily, and I have at some points, just choose not to. And that feels right
Yeah.
a lot of the times, but it feels like I would have to say goodbye to living any kind of a normal quote-unquote life, because you can't function that way in this society.
But that goes back to the bridge walker.
Yeah.
Finding some sort of way to
go in and out seamlessly.
Function between them.
Or at the same time.
Yeah. Because that's what I've talked to you about before. It's like also has to do with context. Like those things that you feel like, oh, they say I got this, they say I got this. Like that's their context of what it is. But then I've told you, I was like, yeah, I feel those same exact things. Like, oh, what is reality? What is real? What is this? What is that? But I think it's freaking awesome. Like just to be able to like think that way, because there's so many people that are not able to do that. They're like, what are you talking about? This is reality. Everything is what it is.
Everything is completely real.
Like they can't think outside the box because
but
they're
there's
locked
a certain
in the box.
sadness to me too that I haven't talked about to anybody, that like being in Italy, like I still didn't feel like I was completely there.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't fully.
Yeah.
I'm like 1 foot in the real world, or the material world, and 1 foot in the metaphysical, and not fully existing anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny that you were talking about the statue, because what I was thinking of that like illustrates this to me, and I just saw it in a store and I want it because I want one of my own. It's the Nike or Nike, I don't know which way you pronounce it, of Samothrace. Do you guys know what that? It's the Winged Victory, and it's that statue that has no arms and no head and just wings. And that's like a huge metaphor for me. No head, only wings. No head, only wings. It's like you're not overanalyzing and you're not thinking. You're just like going with that winged impulse. And you don't even have arms to hold on to anything. You don't have hands to hold on to anything. And that's what it is. And like, for whatever fucking reason, like since the moment I saw this goddamn statue in an art history book in high school, like it's been such a strong metaphor to me. And I'm always like, if this statue had had hands and arms and a head, I wouldn't like it. Because then it would just like be a regular angel or like a winged whatever. It's because of the fact that those pieces are broken off. And it's the absence of them that makes the sculpture whole.
Well, that kind of ties into also, like, for the How We Cope, Audrey had us all pick an image that was close to us. And so I picked, like, this image from Silent Hill 2.
That?
From Silent Hill 2.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Where, like, there's this area you walk into in the game where there's a wall, where there's, like, a window, a giant window with, like, newspaper taped to it and covering it up. And on the newspaper, there's writing that says, there was a hole here, it's gone now. And, like, I remember when I was in high school and I saw that, I'm like, that is, like, fucking brilliant. Like, because, like, that, like, described everything to me.
Yep.
Like, it's not like there's a wall here. No, there was a hole here that's gone now. And what I wrote in, like, the description to that, like, I feel like that plays into what you're saying of, like, the absence of something is just as real as something itself.
Yeah.
And that the material can actually destroy the immaterial.
That literally is, yeah. It's exactly
so it's like when and I feel this way sometimes, and this is why I feel like maybe I'm a little bit crazy.
Nah.
It's just like that, like when I'm always choosing to be in the material world and to believe that am I destroying or ignoring something very important in the absence of the material world?
I think so.
In the immaterial.
It's the same thing in like video games, right? Or in Legends or in a quest. It's like the hero never just gets information in one plane, right? Isn't it like he's tapping into other things? He's going into other worlds. Like,
But
not
also,
in every game, obviously. But
again, my
like,
problem though is that like, or is this just the ego? Is this just me or you or Dom or everybody just wanting to be important? Wanting to see the world in a different way, and so we're pretending that we do.
I think it is though, but like, what the fuck is so bad about that? Because if like really, I think, and like even if you take this to a religious standpoint, it's like Jesus didn't come saying like, I am the Almighty God, and no, he's like, you are like me,
Right?
Like you can be the living Word. Also, you know, you can create this, and that's what we are supposed to be. And so, like, if everyone is God in their own pantheon, then, like, of course they're going to feel important. And of course they're going to create, like, one of the things that I write in the street is create what you wish to experience.
Yes, something strange about me, though, is that, like, or the way that I think is that, which kind of does invalidate the theory I just said, that this is just something making me want to feel important, is that I don't want to feel important. What terrifies most people that I talk to when, like, I love thinking about this and talking about this, where there is this picture you can find on the internet of, like, taken from the Hubble telescope, like, years ago. And it's just, like, this picture, and there's, like, hundreds, maybe thousands of, like, specks of colored light.
Yeah.
And each one of those specks of light is a galaxy.
Yeah.
And it's just one picture of the fucking universe. And it's like, I love that, because it's just like, look how insignificant we are. And when I talk to most people that are like, oh, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's comforting. Because,
of course.
number one, that's saying to me that there's fucking life somewhere out there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, there
All
has to be.
Yeah.
All of
It's
that,
ridiculous to believe that
It's
there's
like the
not.
odds. Like, there's
Yeah.
so much and we're so small. Like, the
And
odds
so
are,
that's
like,
the thing,
ridiculous.
like,
Yeah.
It's definitely.
If our entire planet was to be destroyed, life would still go on.
Yeah.
And I like thinking that. I like it, that makes sense to me, that we're not important, that we are insignificant. But there is something to maybe you're saying that kind of I've not really thought about before, of just like, maybe it's not that we're special or something, but it's just like we're perceiving things that maybe just other people aren't, or maybe a lot of people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And maybe they ignore it. And maybe we're just the personality types of, we can't ignore things.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
No, that's exactly what I think. And Dom had told me about the experience that you had about your aunt or someone in your family.
My grandmother.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Your grandmother
Or-
saying, "I totally dream like that all the time." What do you mean?
No, my
That
aunt
was
said
it,
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's also what I think, because a lot of people are focused on whatever it is they're doing, and maybe it's not even that they don't perceive it, it's that they think it's normal in their own head, or they do not stumble upon a space where it's okay and safe to talk about it. I definitely think that, like, everyone has this capacity. I don't think there's fucking chosen ones and all this bullshit. I think that everyone has the capacity to channel, to, like, walk the world, to, like, be visited by the dead, to, create this myth. Everyone has a chance to do this, and it just depends on your choice and how far, you wish to fall down the rabbit hole. There's, like, a beautiful Terence McKenna quote that's like, what life is like falling into the abyss, letting yourself fall into the abyss, and discovering that it's a feather bed. The quote is longer. It's really beautiful. I have it in, like, my Facebook profile, but
See, I wouldn't accept it because it's too comforting. That's me. That's my thing.
Like a bed of
Anything that
thorns.
makes me feel better can't be real.
I think totally. But I think that's also also like, you know, you guys have heard of like coyote medicine, like the trickster medicine. That's
What's that? No.
That's
I don't
like
think so.
a thing in like, you know, native spirituality and symbolism. It's like, you know, animals and animal spirits have different medicines, quote unquote. And so the coyote is a trickster.
Okay.
And that's exactly something that I feel like coyote would do. Like subvert you in such a way to crack your reality open and be like and when they teach in the way of the coyote, when you ask questions to an elder, they will answer you with a question. You know what I mean? It really is like a Mad Hatter type
Don't I do that to you?
Alice in Wonder. So you're a coyote. Yeah, no, seriously.
Hey, totally, I'm down with that.
I came up with a line years ago of just I prefer questions to answers.
Yeah. Because I think that they're more useful questions.
And I've came up with a line years ago that I've never put in anything of like, it's also kind of corny. I think maybe I brought it up again some point in the podcast,
Probably.
but just beware of those that say they know.
Yeah.
Because I feel like an answer stops your thinking and a question continues.
Yes. Exactly.
It's like, this is what it is. Now stop. Like, you're
Yeah,
done.
like,
You're done here.
No,
Thanks.
fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know
Speaking of
shit.
stopping, shouldn't we wrap this up? We can keep
Yeah.
talking after the podcast is
Sure.
done, but
Oh, what time are we at?
I don't know a lot.
we're at like over an hour, but right?
Sure. Math. Yep.
Alright.
All right, y'all.
So, this has been NYC Geek Society. Like, share, subscribe. Tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your dead relatives. That
Yeah,
visit you
tell
in
your
dreams.
guides and messengers and your wolves and your
Your coyotes.
your coyotes.
And buy Audrey's book. And
Buy John's book.
buy my book, Let's Go for a Walk by Jonathan Cherlin, that you can find
Yeah.
on Amazon.com as well. And NYC Geek Out.
Bow.
Bow.